My name is Amanda, and at 32 years old, I built a $20 million business from scratch without a college degree. For years, I quietly supported my family financially while they looked down on my career choices. Last month, at my dad's birthday dinner, everything changed when he called me uneducated trash and ordered me to leave his house. What he didn't know was how successful I had actually become. The look on his face 3 weeks later was worth every tear I had shed. Before I share how I went from supporting my family to being called trash by my own father, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever felt underestimated by the people who should believe in you the most. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, where expectations were clear and traditional. My father, William, worked as an accountant at the same firm for 30 years and firmly believed that college was the only legitimate path to success. My mother, Patricia, taught elementary school and quietly reinforced his beliefs. From an early age, I sensed I was different from my siblings, Thomas and Jennifer, who both embraced the conventional route. Even at 10 years old, I showed signs of an entrepreneurial spirit that puzzled my parents. While other kids played after school, I ran an elaborate lemonade stand with multiple flavor options and loyalty cards for regular customers. By 13, I was fixing computers for neighbors, charging $20 per hour when the local repair shop charged $75. My parents saw these ventures as cute hobbies, nothing more. Amanda needs to focus on academics instead of these little business projects, my father would say at dinner. These games won't pay the bills when she grows up. High school was challenging. I maintained decent grades but spent my free time reading business books and following entrepreneurs online. While my siblings joined clubs that looked good on college applications, I launched an online store selling customized phone cases I designed myself, earning nearly $2,000 before graduation. Despite my hesitation, I enrolled in community college to appease my parents. One semester was enough to confirm what I already knew. The structured environment felt like a cage, and the business courses taught outdated concepts by professors who had never run real companies. When I told my parents I wanted to drop out to pursue my business ideas, the argument lasted for days. "You're throwing your life away," my father shouted, his face red with anger. "No child of mine will be a college dropout working minimum wage jobs forever." Nevertheless, I left school at 19, with only $2,000 saved from my various side hustles. Those first months were brutal. I rented a tiny studio apartment in a rough neighborhood, the kind where you never do laundry after dark. I survived on ramen noodles and discount groceries while working 18-hour days, building my e-commerce platform. My first 3 business attempts failed completely. I lost money on a dropshipping venture when suppliers sent defective products. My social media management service collapsed because I underpriced my work and burned out serving too many clients. My attempt at creating handmade jewelry couldn't scale beyond occasional sales at local markets. Each failure taught me lessons no college course could offer. I learned supply chain management the hard way, discovered proper client contract structures through painful experience, and understood production scalability only by reaching its limits firsthand. The turning point came when I met Sophia at a local business networking event. 20 years my senior, with multiple successful exits, she saw something in me that my family never did. She became the mentor I desperately needed, teaching me practical business wisdom without judgment about my lack of formal education. Education comes in many forms, Sophia told me over coffee. Some of the most successful people I know learned by doing, not by sitting in classrooms. With her guidance, I refined my business model at age 22 and launched an e-commerce platform connecting small American manufacturers with customers seeking locally made products. The timing was perfect, riding the wave of growing interest in supporting small businesses and domestic manufacturing. Those early days required immense sacrifice. I converted half of my tiny apartment into a makeshift office, sleeping on a futon that doubled as my couch. My desktop computer and printer occupied most of the living space. I worked from 5 a.m. until 11 p.m., handling everything from website coding to customer service calls. The breakthrough came 8 months in, when a popular lifestyle blogger featured one of our artisan partners. Orders flooded in, overwhelming our basic systems. I worked 72 hours straight fulfilling orders and upgrading our website infrastructure. That single feature generated $10,000 in revenue, more money than I had ever seen in my account. Excited, I called my parents to share my progress. My father responded with cautious skepticism. "That's nice, honey, but it's probably just temporary, you know? You can always go back to college when this thing runs its course." His words stung, but they also fueled my determination. I would prove him wrong, not through arguments, but through undeniable success. The next 5 years were a blur of relentless growth and constant challenges. My e-commerce platform, which I named Heartland Made, expanded beyond its original concept. We started with just 27 artisan partners across 3 states. By year 3, we represented more than 400 manufacturers and craftspeople in all 50 states, connecting them with customers who valued American-made products. Every stage of growth brought unique obstacles. When our server crashed during a major promotion, I stayed up for 48 hours straight, working with developers to restore the site and personally answered customer emails to maintain goodwill. When a larger competitor tried to lure our top sellers with promises of better terms, I drove out to meet with each one in person, strengthening relationships and improving our commission structure. The toughest period came during year 2, when cash flow nearly strangled the business. We were growing faster than our capital base, with inventory demands outpacing revenue. I went without a salary for 4 months, moved to an even smaller apartment to cut expenses, and negotiated extended payment terms with suppliers. Those months taught me financial discipline that would serve me well as the company grew. Major milestones followed in quick succession. Our first office was a converted industrial space downtown, where I hired 3 employees to handle customer service and seller relations. Crossing $1 million in annual revenue happened midway through year 3, a moment I celebrated alone with a single glass of champagne in my office after everyone had left. Through it all, I kept my growing success mostly quiet from my family. They knew I had a website business that was doing okay, but I downplayed the true scale of our growth. Their early discouragement had created a wall I couldn't bring myself to cross. Some part of me hoped they would eventually ask genuine questions about my work, but those conversations never came. Despite their lukewarm support, I continued helping my family financially whenever needed. When my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer during year 4 of my business, I anonymously paid the $75,000 in medical expenses not covered by insurance. My father mentioned an insurance settlement that had saved them from medical debt, never realizing the truth. My brother Thomas struggled with the down payment for his first home, falling $40,000 short. I created a family loan through a separate account, making it appear as though it came from a distant uncle. He accepted readily, but still made comments about me getting a real job with benefits whenever we talked about my career. My sister Jennifer had dreamed of a perfect wedding since childhood. When her fiancé Daniel lost his job 6 months before the ceremony, I covered the $50,000 shortfall for the venue and catering. Jennifer knew the money came from me, but minimized my contribution at family gatherings, referring to my little website business that was having a good year. The disconnect between my actual success and my family's perception became an increasingly painful conflict. By day, I led strategy meetings for a multi-million-dollar company, made decisions affecting hundreds of partner businesses, and negotiated with major retail chains for exclusive collections. By night, I fielded texts from family members who still treated me like the college dropout who got lucky with an internet thing. My company headquarters eventually expanded to a full floor in a downtown office building with 38 full-time employees and a strong internship program. Our valuation reached $20 million after a Business Insider profile attracted attention from several investors. I maintained majority ownership, turning down acquisition offers that would have made me wealthy but cost me control of my vision. As my father's 65th birthday approached, I made a decision. It was time to be honest about my success, not to boast, but to finally break through the misconceptions and perhaps gain the respect I had been seeking for years. I purchased a substantial gift, a fully funded retirement investment account, and planned to present it along with the truth about my business at his birthday dinner. The night before the dinner, I rehearsed what I would say. I was no longer the uncertain 19-year-old seeking approval. I was a successful entrepreneur who had created opportunities for hundreds of American manufacturers and dozens of employees. Surely that would finally earn my father's respect and change how my family viewed my unconventional path. I couldn't have been more wrong. The evening of my father's 65th birthday began pleasantly enough. Their house looked exactly as it had throughout my childhood. The same furniture, the same family photos lining the walls. The only new addition was a large television my brother had bought them last Christmas, prominently displayed as a symbol of his financial contribution to the family. My mother greeted me with her usual restrained affection, a quick hug and a pat on the back. "You look nice, Amanda. Did you cut your hair?" It was the same haircut I had kept for 3 years. Thomas arrived with his wife, Heather, both immaculately dressed in business casual attire that subtly communicated their upper-middle-class status. Jennifer and Daniel came shortly after, with Jennifer immediately launching into stories about her recent promotion at the accounting firm where she followed in our father's footsteps. "The partners are already hinting that I might make junior partner next year," she announced proudly, while arranging appetizers. "Youngest in firm history." Throughout the pre-dinner conversation, no one asked a single question about my career. When Daniel briefly mentioned seeing an article about e-commerce growth, my brother quickly redirected the conversation toward his son's Little League achievements. Dinner was my mother's traditional pot roast with all the fixings served on the good china reserved for special occasions. My father sat at the head of the table, accepting compliments about his youthful appearance with practiced modesty. "65 looks good on you, Dad," he said, raising his glass. "Here's to another 20 years, at least." As dessert was served, the moment felt right. I had waited patiently through discussions of neighborhood gossip, Thomas's children's accomplishments, and Jennifer's vacation plans. No one had asked a single question about my life or my business. "Dad, Mom, everyone," I began, my heart racing despite my outward composure. I wanted to share some news about my company. My father nodded absently, already reaching for another slice of birthday cake. "Heartland Made was recently valued at $20 million. We've received several acquisition offers, and I was featured in Business Insider and Entrepreneur magazine last month." The silence that followed felt endless. My mother froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Jennifer exchanged a quick glance with Daniel. Thomas simply stared. My father was the first to speak, his tone dismissive. "What exactly does that mean, Amanda? These internet businesses use all sorts of funny math to come up with their valuations." I maintained my composure, explaining in simple terms how valuations work, our revenue streams, our growth trajectory. I mentioned our office with 38 employees and partnerships with over 400 American manufacturers. Thomas interrupted before I could finish. "So you got lucky with this online thing. That's great. But some of us have been building real careers with actual qualifications." He emphasized the word qualifications while glancing toward his wife, who nodded in agreement. "It's not luck," I replied calmly. "It's 7 years of working 18-hour days, solving complex problems, and building something meaningful. We've helped save dozens of American manufacturing businesses that were on the verge of closing." My mother finally spoke, her voice tentative. "That sounds impressive, dear, though I still wish you'd finished your degree. Even with this business, education is important." I felt my patience wearing thin, but I pressed on. "Actually, I brought something for Dad." I handed him an envelope containing documentation for the retirement account I had funded. "I wanted to make sure you both have a comfortable retirement." My father opened the envelope, his expression darkening as he realized what he was looking at. Instead of gratitude, his face flushed with something that looked remarkably like anger. What is this supposed to be? Some kind of charity? He dropped the papers onto the table. We didn't raise you to throw money around like you're better than everyone else. That's not my intention at all, I explained. I just wanted to help, the same way I helped with Mom's medical bills, Thomas's house down payment, and Jennifer's wedding. 3 heads snapped up simultaneously. My secret financial help was suddenly exposed. You? My father sputtered. That was all you? Jennifer looked mortified. Thomas's expression hardened into something ugly. My mother simply looked confused. You've been secretly paying for things behind our backs? My father shouted, his voice rising with every word. Playing the big shot with your internet money? I was just trying to help, I replied, my voice smaller than I intended. I just wanted to support the family. Support, Thomas interjected, by making us feel like charity cases? Some of us work honest jobs with actual degrees, not getting rich quick with online schemes. It's not a scheme, I insisted, feeling the conversation spiral beyond my control. We built a legitimate business that helps American manufacturers reach customers. We employ dozens of people with good salaries and benefits. My father stood abruptly, his napkin falling to the floor. You dropped out of college against our advice, disappeared into your little internet world, and now you come back throwing money around like you have all the answers. That's not what I'm doing, I protested, fighting to keep my voice steady. You think your money makes you successful? He continued, his voice rising even higher. You're still just uneducated trash who got lucky. Anyone can get lucky. The room fell silent. My mother gasped softly, but said nothing to defend me. Thomas looked down at his plate, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Jennifer looked torn between embarrassment and agreement. William, my mother finally whispered, too late and too quietly to matter. No, my father continued, now fully enraged. I've worked my entire life the right way. I had built an education, established a respectable career, and raised a family. I would not be humiliated in my own home by my dropout daughter. I stood slowly, gathering my purse. I should go. Yes, you should. Get out of my house, you lowlife. Your money doesn't make you part of this family. We have standards. The words hit like physical blows. I looked around the table, searching for any ally, any sign of support. There was none. Happy birthday, Dad, I said quietly, walking toward the door with as much dignity as I could gather. No one followed me out. No one called after me. My hands trembled so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel as I got into my car. As I drove away from the house I had grown up in, I realized something fundamental had shattered, something that could never be repaired. The drive back to my hotel was a blur of streetlights and tears. Twice I had to pull over when emotion overwhelmed my ability to drive safely. The cruel irony was not lost on me. I owned a multi-million-dollar company, yet I was spending the night in a hotel in my own hometown because my own family's house was no longer open to me. In the sterile quiet of my hotel room, I replayed the evening over and over, analyzing every word, every reaction. Had I been too forward, too proud? Had I misread our family dynamic? All those years of financial help now felt like a foolish attempt to buy approval I could never earn through my achievements alone. I opened my laptop and began documenting every cent I had given my family over the years. The list was substantial. $75,000 for my mother's cancer treatment, paid directly to the hospital and specialists. $120,000 for my brother's house, covering not just the down payment, but also the renovations he requested months later. $50,000 for my sister's wedding, including the venue, catering, and the honeymoon she never knew I funded. Countless smaller expenses followed. My father's car repair last winter, $22,000. My mother's kitchen renovation, $35,000. Christmas gifts, birthday presents, emergency costs, all quietly handled through accounts designed to hide their source. Nearly $300,000 in total, not including the retirement account my father had just refused. Money I never expected to be repaid, given freely out of love for a family that had just called me trash. Around midnight, my phone lit up with a text from Jennifer. Dad is still upset, but he'll get over it. You know how he gets when his authority is challenged. No apology. No acknowledgement of the horrific things said. Just the usual expectation that I'd absorb the abuse and return to the same dynamic as if nothing had happened. I didn't respond. The next morning, I contacted a therapist in the city where I lived. Dr. Richardson agreed to an emergency virtual session that afternoon. Family wounds cut deepest, she observed after I recounted the dinner, especially when they attack the very things you've worked hardest to overcome. Over the following days, Dr. Richardson helped me understand the complex dynamics at play. My success had threatened the family hierarchy and the values my parents built their lives around. My financial help, instead of earning gratitude, created resentment by highlighting a shift in power they were not prepared to accept. Your father's identity is built around being the provider and authority, she explained. Your success challenges both. I began journaling, documenting not only that painful night, but also patterns throughout my childhood. The subtle ways my entrepreneurial spirit had been discouraged. The times academic achievements were celebrated while business successes were minimized. The constant reminder that without a degree, I'd never truly succeed. This process revealed how deeply I had internalized those messages. Despite all my success, part of me still felt like the family failure, the dropout who always had something to prove. It explained my reluctance to discuss my achievements openly and my quiet, unacknowledged financial support. A week after the disastrous dinner, my sister called. I let it go to voicemail. Amanda, please call back. Dad feels bad about what happened. We all do. But you have to understand how it looked. You coming in and basically showing off your money. It was insensitive to the rest of us who worked hard for our careers. I deleted the message without replying. The narrative twist was astonishing. Somehow, I had become the villain for merely stating facts about my business after years of minimizing my success. My brother texted next. Family is family. Let's move past this. No apology there either. Just another expectation that I'd return to my assigned role and accept the treatment that came with it. 2 weeks after the dinner, I made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. I would choose self-respect over toxic family dynamics. The beach house I'd bought in Naples, Florida the previous year as an investment property would now become my new home. Before leaving, I wrote a letter to my parents. Not an angry tirade, but an honest expression of hurt and disappointment. Dear Mom and Dad, I've spent years seeking your approval and respect. I've supported our family financially while downplaying my success to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. Despite building a $20 million company that helps preserve American manufacturing jobs, I've been made to feel like the family failure because I chose a different path from the one you prescribed. When Dad called me uneducated trash and a lowlife, it revealed how you truly see me. No matter how successful I become, that perception will never change. I can't continue in a relationship where my worth is measured by credentials rather than character and achievement. I'll always love you both, but I need to create distance for my own well-being. I hoped that someday we could rebuild our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect. Love, Amanda. I sealed the letter and mailed it personally at the post office. No response came in the days that followed. With the help of my executive assistant, I arranged for my belongings in Ohio to be packed and shipped to Florida. I instructed her to donate most of my furniture and clothing to local charities, wanting a fresh start with minimal baggage, both literal and emotional. My company could operate remotely, requiring only occasional trips back for key meetings. The leadership team I had built over the years was strong enough to manage day-to-day operations without my constant presence. As I boarded the plane to Florida, I felt a complex mix of grief and freedom. The family I had tried so desperately to please was behind me, but so was the burden of chasing approval I would never receive. Naples, Florida, greeted me with warm sunshine and salt-scented air, a stark contrast to the gray Ohio winter I'd left behind. My beach house stood on a quiet stretch of shoreline, a modern two-story structure with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Gulf of Mexico. I had purchased it as an investment property the previous year and had only visited twice for brief vacations. When I arrived, the property felt impersonal, more like an upscale hotel than a home. Turning this house into a true home became a form of therapy. I started with the primary bedroom, replacing the generic beige bedding with handcrafted quilts from one of my Heartland-made artisans in North Carolina. The mass-produced artwork came down, replaced by original pieces from emerging American artists I had discovered through my business. Each morning I woke to the sound of waves and the sight of authentic creativity surrounding me. Next came the kitchen transformation. I installed open shelving to display handmade pottery from our Vermont and New Mexico partners. The industrial-grade appliances stayed, but colorful, hand-woven textiles and locally crafted wooden serving boards added warmth to the space. Establishing new routines became essential to my healing process. Each morning began with a sunrise walk along the beach, feet in the cool sand, collecting shells and watching dolphins arc through the waves offshore. I found a local coffee shop run by a Cuban-American family where I soon became a regular, greeted by name rather than order. Running the business remotely proved easier than expected. Video conferences replaced in-person meetings, and our established systems functioned smoothly with little adjustment. Without the daily commute or office distractions, I became more productive, making clearer decisions from my peaceful new headquarters. After the first month, my executive team visited for 3 days of strategic planning sessions on my oceanfront deck. Several remarked on the positive change they noticed in my leadership. "You seem more centered," Marcus, operations director, observed, "more confident in your decisions." He was right. Without the constant undercurrent of seeking family approval, my instincts flowed more freely. I trusted my judgment without the shadow of my father's criticism clouding every choice. Community involvement became another anchor in my new life. I joined the local Chamber of Commerce and a women's business networking group. Unlike in my hometown, where I had downplayed my success, here I spoke openly about my company and achievements. Respect came naturally, unburdened by who I was before my success. I befriended Eliza, the owner of a local art gallery, who introduced me to her circle of friends, accomplished women in their 30s and 40s, who valued one another for present achievements rather than past credentials. Our weekly dinners became a highlight, filled with laughter and conversation that never once included questions about my education or assumptions that I had merely been lucky. The unexpected visit came 3 weeks into my Florida life. My brother, Thomas, arrived unannounced one Saturday afternoon. "Nice place," he said, whistling as he admired the ocean view from my living room. "Really nice." His presence was jarring in my new sanctuary. He looked out of place in his button-down shirt and pressed khakis amid my casual coastal decor. "What brings you to Florida, Thomas?" I asked, not offering a drink nor a seat. "Family," he replied with that same confident smile he'd used to charm our parents since childhood. "And I could use some advice about an investment opportunity, possibly a loan to get in on the ground floor. Some patterns were too predictable to surprise me." Without our parents as an audience, his pretense dropped quickly. This was a financial visit, nothing more. "I'm not making any loans to family members anymore," I said firmly. "That chapter is closed." His expression hardened. "So that's how it is. You move to your beach mansion and forget where you came from. Dad was right about you." "Dad called me uneducated trash and kicked me out of his house," I reminded him. "Is that what you came here to reinforce?" Thomas backpedaled quickly. "He didn't mean it like that. You know how he gets. Family fights happen." "That wasn't a fight," I replied evenly. "It was a revelation. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have plans this afternoon." After showing him out, I sat on my deck watching the waves, surprisingly unshaken by the encounter. The boundaries I was setting felt right, even if painful to enforce. That evening, I made a significant decision. I contacted my lawyer and established an anonymous scholarship fund at the community college I had once attended. The Amanda Wilson Entrepreneurship Scholarship would provide full tuition and mentorship each year to 5 students who demonstrated entrepreneurial potential but lacked traditional academic advantages. Ensure the selection criteria focus on initiative and creative problem solving, not grades. And find mentors who have built real businesses, not just taught business theory. As weeks passed, my house truly became a home. I planted a garden of native Florida species that attracted butterflies and hummingbirds. I adopted a rescue dog, a mixed breed named Charlie, who accompanied me on beach walks and slept at the foot of my bed. His uncomplicated affection reminded me daily of how relationships should feel. I found unexpected peace in solitude. Without the constant anxiety of family judgment, I discovered parts of myself that had long been buried under that pressure. I took a pottery class at a local studio, terrible at it, but enjoying its meditative rhythm. I tried paddleboard yoga, spending more time in the water than on the board, but laughing through every attempt. 3 weeks turned into a month, then 6. The pain of family rejection remained, but it softened. No longer a sharp wound, but an old ache that surfaced only occasionally. I was building something new here. Not just a home, but an authentic life aligned with my values rather than someone else's expectations. Then came the unexpected development that would bring my family story full circle in ways I never anticipated. The Naples Business Journal was not a publication I usually read, but one morning, Eliza texted me insistently. "Page 3, you're going to want to see this." The feature profiled local business owners making an impact beyond Florida. And there I was, photographed on my deck with the Gulf of Mexico behind me, under the headline, "E-commerce innovator brings multi-million-dollar business to Naples." The journalist had done her homework, detailing Heartland Made's growth from a startup to a $20 million valuation, our impact on American manufacturing, and my recent Entrepreneurship Scholarship Foundation. The article portrayed a version of success far more complete than anything ever published about me back home. "I didn't authorize this," I told Eliza when she called to congratulate me. "Public records," she explained. "Property transfers, business registrations. Once they knew you were here, the rest was easy to piece together. Besides, it's a great article." She was right. The article was well-researched and flattering, focusing on professional accomplishments rather than personal details. I thought little more about it until the following week when my phone began lighting up with notifications. The article had been picked up by several larger business publications and quickly spread through LinkedIn and Facebook. Former classmates suddenly remembered our friendship. Teachers claimed they had always seen my potential. Most surprising, however, were the messages from small business owners in my hometown, people thanking me for proving what was possible without following traditional paths. "You inspired me to finally launch my business," wrote a former classmate. "If you could build something so substantial without a fancy degree, maybe my idea has merit too." Soon after, the local newspaper back home ran a condensed version titled, "Local Entrepreneur Makes National Impact." The irony was impossible to miss. The same community that had once reinforced my parents' disappointment now celebrated me as a hometown success story. As the publicity rippled outward, my family inevitably discovered the full extent of my achievements. The first sign came in the form of a friend request from my cousin Susan, followed by several other extended family members who had shown little interest in my life before. Then came the text from my mother. "Saw the article about your company. Very impressive, dear. Dad and I are so proud." No mention of my father's cruelty. No acknowledgement of the rift. Just a casual claim of pride that had been glaringly absent the night he threw me out. My father's voice message arrived the next day, his tone forcibly cheerful. "Amanda, big news about your company in the paper. Always knew you had it in you. There seems to have been a misunderstanding last time we spoke. Call me back when you can." A misunderstanding. That was how he described calling his daughter uneducated trash and ordering her out of his home. 3 days later, another message from my mother arrived. "We're thinking of visiting Florida next month. Would love to see your new place. Let us know if that would work for you." The text landed like a stone in my stomach. 6 weeks of healing, of rebuilding a life free from their judgment, and now they wanted to appear at my doorstep as if nothing had happened. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Richardson. "You have several options," she said after listening patiently. "You can decline the visit entirely. You can agree but set strict boundaries about what you will and won't discuss. Or you can view this as an opportunity for honest conversation, though that requires their willingness to acknowledge the harm done." After careful reflection, I texted my mother. "You and Dad are welcome to visit, but we need to have an honest conversation about what happened at his birthday dinner before we can move forward. Please let me know if you're open to that kind of discussion." Her reply came quickly. "Of course, dear. We just want to put this behind us and be a family again." The freezing troubled me, that desire to put it behind us without ever confronting it. But I confirmed dates for their visit the following month. As the day approached, I prepared both practically and emotionally. I arranged for them to stay in a nearby hotel rather than my home, preserving my personal space. I practiced potential conversations with Dr. Richardson, rehearsing boundaries without slipping into defensiveness. My parents arrived on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. I met them at a beachfront restaurant for lunch, a public setting to help moderate the initial tension. They looked smaller somehow, less intimidating than they had in Ohio. My father's once commanding posture seemed diminished. My mother looked nervous, avoiding my gaze. Both were overdressed for the coastal setting, my father in a button-down shirt and slacks, my mother in a structured dress better suited for church than beach diving. "This place is something else," my father said, gesturing toward the turquoise water glinting through the restaurant windows. "You've done well for yourself, Amanda." The slight emphasis on "for yourself" didn't escape me, the implication that my success existed in isolation from family values. "Thank you," I replied simply, letting the awkward silence linger. My mother quickly filled it with small talk, their flight, the Florida weather, how different it was from Ohio. I responded politely, but offered nothing to keep the conversation alive. Finally, after our food arrived, my father cleared his throat. "About what happened at my birthday dinner," he began. "Things got a bit heated. You called me uneducated trash and a lowlife. You told me to get out of your house and that my money didn't make me part of the family." His face flushed. "I was surprised by the news about your business. It caught me off guard. I may have overreacted." Not an apology, an excuse. "I need to understand," I continued, maintaining eye contact. "Was that reaction about me sharing my success or about learning I'd been helping the family financially?" "Both," my mother interjected quickly. "It felt like you were showing off, like you're saying you're better than us now." "I never said that. I never thought that," I replied evenly. "I spent years hiding my success to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. I helped financially because I could and because I wanted to support the family I love." My father shifted in his seat. "Well, the way you presented it was very forward. And finding out you were behind those other things, it felt like charity we never asked for." The conversation continued in this vein throughout lunch. There was no genuine apology, only justifications, excuses, and attempts to minimize what had happened. The subtext grew clearer with every exchange. They weren't here because they had reevaluated my worth. They were here because my public success made rejecting me socially awkward. As we finished our meal, I made a decision. "I'd like to show you my home, but first, I need to be very clear about something. I will not pretend that dinner never happened. I will not accept being called names or having my choices belittled. If you want a relationship moving forward, it has to be based on mutual respect." They exchanged uneasy glances before my father finally nodded. That seems reasonable. When they arrived at my beach house later that afternoon, their expressions said everything. As they took in the expansive ocean view, I saw the realization dawn. This success was undeniable. The $20 million valuation was no longer an abstract figure. It stood before them in the form of beachfront property and understated elegance. "This is quite something," my father said, his voice tight. "Would you like a tour?" I offered. As I guided them through the house, pointing out handcrafted decor made by Heartland-made artisans, a quiet understanding settled over me. Their approval, the thing I had chased for so many years, no longer held the power it once did. I was proud of this home and of the business that made it possible, regardless of their reaction. That realization alone was worth more than any apology they might ever give. The conversation that followed was difficult but necessary. We sat on the deck, overlooking the ocean, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A scene too beautiful for such a tense discussion. "I want to be clear about something," my father began, his tone more conciliatory than I'd ever heard it. "I'm sorry for what I said at my birthday. It was uncalled for, regardless of how surprised I was." The apology, while welcome, carried a qualification that dulled its sincerity. His focus remained on his own reaction, not the harm his words had caused. "What hurt most was that your words revealed how you truly see me, despite everything I've accomplished." My mother reached across the table, stopping just short of touching my hand. "We've always been proud of you, Amanda. We just worried about your future without a degree." "My future is here," I replied, gesturing toward the house and the ocean beyond. "I built this, without a degree, but with 7 years of relentless work. That deserves respect, not condescension." My father shifted again, looking out toward the horizon. "The business world can be fickle. Companies rise and fall overnight. We just wanted security for you." "I understand that," I acknowledged, "and I know that concern comes from love. But there's no perfect security in any path. Plenty of people with degrees struggle financially, while others without formal education thrive. What matters is recognizing that there are many valid paths to success." The conversation continued for hours, as the sun disappeared beneath the gulf and stars began to pierce the twilight sky. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no tearful embrace that magically healed decades of misunderstanding. Instead of reconciliation, we reached a fragile understanding, a beginning rather than a conclusion. "Moving forward," I said, as the evening drew to a close, "I'm open to rebuilding our relationship, but only with clear boundaries. I will not accept being demeaned for my educational choices or having my success dismissed as luck instead of hard work and skill." My parents agreed, though my father's tight smile and careful wording revealed reluctance. My mother seemed more sincerely receptive, perhaps recognizing for the first time the part she had played in sustaining the family dynamics that had caused so much pain. After they returned to Ohio, I reflected deeply on their visit and the path that had brought me here. The healing process was far from complete, but meaningful progress had been made. In the months that followed, I maintained limited contact with my parents, brief weekly phone calls that gradually became less awkward. My relationships with my siblings evolved differently. Jennifer eventually offered a genuine apology for her part in everything, and we slowly rebuilt a connection rooted in adult friendship rather than old childhood patterns. Thomas remained distant, sending the occasional holiday greeting, but making no effort to understand or acknowledge the hurt that had been done. My personal healing continued through regular therapy sessions. Dr. Richardson helped me see how family trauma had shaped my approach to business and relationships, how I had been chasing validation through achievement and financial generosity. Success is not a substitute for self-worth. and family approval cannot be bought, no matter how much you give. That insight changed everything. I began establishing firmer boundaries in all my relationships. I learned to discuss my accomplishments openly, without minimizing them. I learned to give out of genuine kindness, not as a silent plea for acceptance. The Entrepreneurship Foundation became the heart of my philanthropic work. Beyond scholarships, I launched a mentorship program that paired successful entrepreneurs without formal degrees with aspiring students facing similar challenges. Watching their growth and confidence blossom brought me a fulfillment far deeper than any parental approval ever could. My circle of friends in Naples expanded into what I came to call my chosen family, people bound not by blood, but by mutual respect, honesty, and care. Our weekly dinners became a source of joy and belonging I had never known in Ohio. Through them, I finally understood what true support and healthy connection feel like. The beach house, too, evolved over time. Every room came to reflect my authentic taste and values, rather than generic notions of luxury. The garden thrived with native plants that attracted birds and butterflies. Charlie, my rescue dog, gained a companion, Luna, a senior retriever from the local shelter that everyone else had overlooked. Running Heartland Made remotely exceeded every expectation. The transition inspired me to implement flexible work policies for all employees, allowing them to work from anywhere for part of the year. Productivity soared, and employee satisfaction reached record highs. A year after moving to Florida, I hosted a dinner party for my new friends. We gathered around the deck table, watching dolphins dance in the sunset waves. I looked around, realizing how completely my life had transformed since that painful night at my parents' house. To chosen family, Eliza toasted, raising her glass, and to having the courage to prioritize respect over obligation. Her words captured exactly what I had learned through this journey. Family ties are precious, but never at the cost of dignity or self-respect. Success isn't measured by degrees or traditional milestones, but by the lives we touch and the good we bring into the world. Most importantly, I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or continuing to accept harm. True forgiveness is an inner release, a way to let go of anger and resentment while still maintaining the boundaries that protect your peace. My story is still unfolding, as all our stories are. My relationship with my parents continues to evolve, sometimes moving forward, sometimes slipping back into old patterns. I maintain my boundaries with compassionate firmness, accepting that complete understanding may never come, but refusing to compromise my self-worth in pursuit of it. If my experience carries any wisdom worth sharing, it's this: your value is not defined by others' perceptions, especially those shaped by outdated expectations. Success takes many forms, often unexpected ones, and sometimes the most painful rejections guide us toward the most authentic and fulfilling paths. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own dreams? Did you face criticism for following an unconventional path? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, remember to like, subscribe, and share. You never know who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the family we create is far more important than the one we were born into.